Logical operators are used to combine two or more logical conditions into a more complex compound test. The AND operator is true only if both conditions are true. It's false otherwise. The OR operator is true if either of the two conditions is true and is in that sense much less restrictive than AND. NOT operator simply reverses the condition result. Let's switch back to VB and move the LBL label right before the rate declaration at the top of the code. And then under the first slide 4 comment, enter the following compound logical condition. txt payment.text is assigned to rate then greater than equal to 0 and rate less than equal to 100. This condition we evaluate true only if both of the individual conditions are true. That is, if the rate we enter is both greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 100. In other words, if the number is in the correct range for it to be an interest rate. Save and run the code and test it by entering 2.56 at first, which will evaluate true because both the rate of 2.56 is greater than or equal to 0 and the rate of 2.56 is less than or equal to 100. Change it to 120 and click calculate to observe the false because now one of the two conditions is not true. Although the rate is greater than or equal to 0 for 120, it is not under 100. And because rate less than or equal to 100 evaluates to false, the whole thing evaluates to false. Similarly, if we enter a nonsense number like negative 10, which is not even the rate, and if you click calculate, we'll still observe false because now the first condition is not true. Rate is not greater than or equal to 0. It is less than 0. But the second one is true because rate is under 100. Negative 10 is less than or equal to 100. Next, we're going to demonstrate the NOT operator and string comparison. But let's first move the LBL label down past the line we just entered. Right here. And then go under the slide 4, next slide 4 comment, and enter the following code. First, we declare a last name string and assign it the value in double quotes Smith. Then let's enter the following logical statement into txt payment text box as follows. Not open parenthesis last name equal Smith in double quote. Because a last name we just entered is Smith, last name equal to Smith condition will evaluate to true. The not of that is simply be reversing the true to false. Save, run, and test it, and you should get false. The next line of code does exactly the opposite. txt payment.text equals not of last name not equal to Smith in double quotes. Because last name is Smith, the condition or the test last name not equal to Smith will evaluate to false. The not of that false will reverse it to true. Save and run to verify that indeed that is what you get. And now let's get back to the presentation. This slide demonstrates the use of OR logical operator. We will define two Boolean variables and use them to hold results of two tests. One comparing the first letter of the last name to lowercase s, and the other one comparing the first letter of the last name to the uppercase s. If either one is true, then we know we have a last name that starts with S, as in Smith. Let's go back to VB and reposition LBL right here after the first of the two slide 5 comments and enter the following code. Last name is assigned to the value Smith with a lowercase s in this case, and then we assign the first letter string variable to be equal to last name dot substring 01, which will extract the first letter of the last name. Then we declare two Boolean variables, bool lower, comma bool upper as Boolean, and assign bool lower to the following test. First letter equal to lowercase s, followed by the second Boolean variable assigned to the following test. First letter equals to the uppercase s. Then we're going to assign to the txt payment text box the following compound condition: bool lower or bool upper, and test it with Smith spelled with lowercase and uppercase s. First, with lowercase s, we'll see that the result is true because at least one of the conditions is true, and that is the bool lower, because the Smith with lowercase s makes this condition true. Then we'll change this to something that's not starting with the letter S like Williams. Save and test to see that the result is false, because in this case neither of the two conditions are true. And then we'll revert back to the Smith with the uppercase letter and verify that we get the true again, because now the second condition, bool upper, is true. In addition to the couple of statements we had here with the or condition or logical operator, we want to show a few other useful Boolean methods and functions. Boolean method ends with and Boolean method starts with test whether a string ends or starts with a certain character pattern. For example, the code, and we'll leave the LBL where it is, and then the code txt payment dot text equals last name dot ends with, in parentheses th, will return true because the Smith does end with these two letters T and H. If we type Williams, of course we will get false because Williams does not end with those two letters. Let's revert back to Smith. Another extremely useful Boolean function we will use quite often is numeric, is numeric. This function determines if the string is a legitimate number, either double or integer, and returns true if it is, false if it's not. This is clearly useful for validating user entry for variables such as amount, rate, and term. Move the label right back before the last line of code, or after I should say the last line of code, to skip it all, and type the following line of code: txt payment dot text equals is numeric open parenthesis txt rate dot text. If you enter a number, any number, you will get true, as the following program run demonstrates. 2.56 gives you true. If you enter, on the other hand, a random string like x, y, and z, you will get a false. If you get another number like 120, although not a legitimate rate, it will still give you a true, because it is indeed a number. And more importantly, if you leave the value of the cell blank and hit calculate, you will get the false because the blank cell cannot be converted into a number, which is why the C double conversion would fail. Let's quick save and switch back to the presentation and take a break.